Welcome to another inspiring episode of the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hosts Melanie Johnson and Jenn Foster are the owners of Elite Online Publishing. They're both Wall Street Journal, USA Today best-selling authors. We're really glad you're here because this podcast was designed for you. Meet industry experts that share their secrets and strategies. Get successful results for your business in money, relationships, health, and your life. Each episode is going to inspire you to take action towards reaching your greatness.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. We're so happy to have you here. Thanks for joining us. I'm Melanie Johnson, the host of Elite Expert Insider Podcast, along with my co-host, Jenn Foster. Hey Jenn, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's everyone doing today?
I hope everyone is having a fantastic week. We have the co-authors, David and Colton Chorpenning with us today. And their title of their book, it will get your attention. What the F is next? No BS guide to getting what you really want. So if you've been wanting to get what you really want or don't even know what you want, they have a system to walk you through this step by step to get exactly what you want out of life. I know I'm interested in that. I bet you are too. Who doesn't want everything they've ever wanted out of life and decide really what that is instead of just letting life give you what it wants to give you along the road. So welcome, David and Colton. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Melanie. Hey, Jenn. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I've listened to at least one of your podcasts and have taken away some great information. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, tell us a little bit how you came up with this concept and developed the idea, the system, and the book.
Yeah. So the process itself comes from about 30 years of my dad's work in professional development and life coaching. We use this process with organizations, individuals, athletes for that whole time and really refine the process in like practical work in person. And then he published the book, a version of the book called The Field Guide for What's Next 7 years ago. And that was a great, first edition. It was a great tool again to use for in-person, like kind of, structured sessions with people for life coaching and that kind of thing. And then I actually used the book when he published it and did the process, filled it out myself. And it was about 2 years after I filled out the process. There's an actual practical workbook that you fill out questions and you look to try and, figure out exactly what it is that you're looking for to do next. And I was looking at that book at about 2 years after it. And I saw that my intention was very strong, that I wanted to learn to surf and travel the world. And I had just gotten back from a 2-year trip around the world where I had learned how to surf. And I was like, wow, hair stood up on the back of my neck. I'm like, wow, there's something to this for sure. This is amazing. And so then I did the process again, and I found that I really wanted to work at Google. That was like the next thing that I wanted to do in my career. And so with that intention, I went out and I applied for Google, but then also looked for other opportunities. I had an opportunity to move to Santa Cruz, California, which is actually much closer to the motherland of Silicon Valley, Googleplex. And then once I had moved out there, I was reached out to by a recruiter. And it was because I had created this intention and I kind of designed my, life around achieving this goal. And then I've been at Google now for 4 years. So the process has worked amazing for me. It's worked amazing for other people that we know. So it was about 2 years ago that I had a little bit of extra time on my hands and we were fly fishing together on the Dream Stream, which is a great fishing spot in Colorado. And we were like, maybe let's take a stab at writing this book together. We both had such a, positive experience with it. He's had the expert element to it. I've had the success in my own personal life and, like to take on cool projects and do this. So we were like, yeah, let's, refresh the book in a, new and more modern way. That is kind of a collaboration between father and son, giving that kind of, younger side and older side of getting what we want out of life. And yeah, that's where we're at. And we published the book earlier this year.
I love that. And Santa Cruz has great surfing too, right?
Totally. Exactly. That was a good win-win.
Awesome. And David, tell us your kind of version of that. Like, how did this idea get started with your first edition and now this new second edition?
Yeah, I have really found that intention has leveraged what I consider my average skills into having a really great life. So I've had that personal experience. I had it, fortunately, I had it early. I had some opportunities that led me to understand intention and use intention. Going back to my early 20s, I happened to be in real estate, and the big kind of the thing back then was real estate agents would go to these seminars, and people like Zig Ziglar and Napoleon Hill and Tony Robbins, who is obviously still around today, would come and talk to us about, oh, you should set goals because you can sell more houses and make lots of money. And I wasn't totally, that really wasn't, didn't inspire me that much, but the concept kind of stuck with me. And so I early on created an intention to be financially independent by the time I was 33. And I had success at that pretty straight away. By the time I was 26, I had actually acquired about 13 units, and said, okay, well, this seems like a good plan, because it was pretty unlikely that I was going to be able to buy that much real estate at 23 years old, even back then. So with that success, I decided to create some other intentions, which were to have a long-term relationship and to move where I really wanted to live. Shortly after that, those things happened. So with having built some confidence around this tool, I started using it early. And then as I moved through my life, finally it came to the opportunity where I really created an intention that I want to make a contribution to the body of knowledge about things that are important to me. And that is at one of the top of the list. And so I wrote a book called Everyday Visionary, A Practical Guide to the Life You Desire. That's been a while ago. And then followed it up with a book that Colton mentioned, The Field Guide for What's Next. So one is the process and the other is all the kind of science and background. So with those two books, always wanted to put them together into one. When Colton came to me, fishing together and that day and mentioned it, it was like, whoa, that would be great for us to do this together, because we have collaborated on a number of projects in the past and had a great life together doing a lot of fun things. So to bring this topic into the mainstream world was a passion of mine, and doing it with Colton was certainly icing on the cake.
I love your story, and it's great inspiration. I love the father and son together, and we're coming up on Father's Day. So I think this is really just great timing that you're both here. So, I find with I'm going to kind of jump to today's teenagers, people in their 20s, because Colton, that's kind of when you started the journey on this. Everything with COVID and mental health, a lot of times they have trouble finding clarity of, I don't know what I want. I don't know what my future looks like. I have no vision. It's almost like, New York is having all their air affected by the wildfires of Canada, and you can't see across the bridge. And it's kind of like their vision is like that. And there's people, even adults, that have that. I don't really know. How do they nail it down to figure out what really is the direction they should go in and what they want?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, there's an interesting moment in time there with the pandemic that created kind of a stillness and such a change in our, traditional day to day that a lot of people did kind of automatically reflect on if what they were doing was serving them or had opportunities to kind of, work in a new way. So I think that was an interesting reason that we were like, this is a really relevant time right now to work on this book and create this, really concise process for people. I think for anybody, just, working on creating your own approach to creating intentions is the most important step to getting what you want to do or figuring out like what the path is. For us, we have our book built around the process of the big rocks. So basically, imagine that you have a jar in front of you, and that jar is the time and energy that you have in your life. And then I put a large pile of rocks next to you, and I say, all right, so what are the biggest and most important things in your life? Those will be your big rocks. And then I have you put those rocks into the jar. And I say, is the jar full? And you say, oh, well, yeah, it looks pretty full. And then I say, oh, well, actually I have another smaller pile of pebbles that I put up in front of you. And I say, those are the like medium-sized things in your life, like doing your job or going to a show or going on vacation or something like that. And I put those in the jar, and those all kind of fill in the crevices around the big rocks. And I say, is the jar full? And you say, yeah, the jar is looking pretty full. And then I say, oh, well, actually, I have another pile of sand here. And the sand represents like the tiny day-to-day things, answering emails, walking the dog, doing any sort of task like that. And then I put the sand, and that then fills in the rest of the little tiny cracks. And so with that, then I ask if the jar is full. And you say, yeah, it's got to be full now. I could do the same thing with water, but I think you get the point. And the point of that is then that is a perfect way of making sure that you're fitting everything into the jar of your time of your life. If you would have done it the opposite way, you would have put the sand in first. It would have filled this bottom layer that's totally like the same. It doesn't fit around the other aspects. So that in first, then you put the pebbles in next, and you put the rocks in last. Then the rocks are going to be overflowing out of the top, and they're not going to get the attention that they deserve in the amount of time that you have. So a key to the process is answering all the questions that we have, identifying the things that you've been good at, that you like to do, and then figuring out a way to prioritize those first for then the next 30 to 60 days and get started on that what's next in that one area of your life, which is a big rock for you.
I love that. I love the analogy of the jar too, and overflowing. I love that.
Mhm.
How do you get your day-to-day so it doesn't get in the way? So you fill up your jar, you've got your big goals and your direction that you want to go in. We get derailed. Stuff happens. I get sick. A child needs something, someone got fired from their job or whatever happens. There's just even little things throughout the day that distract you. And you're like, oh, holy, you know what, that I didn't even do anything towards my goal today and towards my big rocks.
Yeah. So I think Colton really teed up the concept of big rocks. And this is a really key factor. And that is, so once you have to do that first, you have to identify what your first rocks are. And to do that, it really requires you to do some process of reflection to determine what are those things that are most important to you. Is your relationship important? Is a new career important? Is taking a trip important? Is your health important? And it's not just calling that a category. It's really defining, what does that look like? I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they were talking to me about they thought their health was really important. And when they talked to them about it, they were adding on all these different things. Oh, my health is important, but then my relationship is important. And then our finances are important. And I said, those are all true. So what you should do is make, your health is your important big rock. Now define that, create the words that describe, you're a publisher, so you understand the importance of words, and do it in a positive way and a clean way. So that then that, okay, I need to block out 1 hour every morning for my health. And that is no one can jump in on that time. And as an example for myself is that earlier when we had kids, I'm very much an outdoor person, as my wife is as well. But when we had kids, we co-parented. So we were very egalitarian. I wanted as much time with Colton and Chelsea as Beth wanted. But we also had our lives. We had careers. We had things we were doing. But one of the things that was really important is that I needed to do my outdoor activities. So pretty early on, and I was fortunate to have a friend that was very supportive of this, we created what we said is half-day Fridays. So by time noon rolled around, there's nothing on my calendar. And I would, get ready to go. And I'd go, there's no way I can leave right now. I've got too many things. There's too many loose ends. But I did. And my wife said, David, it's half day Friday. It's time to go. And I left. And we went bike riding, cross-country skiing, something. And wow, there was never a time when I took that half a day that all those things that I absolutely thought I couldn't leave, never was a problem, ever. And I was always hanging out with these people, my friends, they're super smart, that we would just talk about stuff. And I would come home energized, having solved whatever issues I had on my table that I would have never done had I just kept working away during that half hour block. So that's an example of me early on making that decision. And then it crept into Wednesdays. So then it was Wednesdays. And we were always told our friends, don't book anything on Wednesdays. There's only a few of our friends that have gotten good at that, but I've got at least one really good friend. No way. And he is super busy. He was the mayor of our town and he had a law firm, but Wednesdays came around, we were off skiing. We were off doing something. And now it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So yeah, big rocks are important. Other stuff will get done.
I love that concept of half-day Fridays. I like to implement that in my life too.
Yeah, I can already hear
Totally.
that's coming at our next
Yeah.
meeting.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, tell us, Colton, where people can go to find you and get more information about the book.
Yeah, totally. Easiest place is theFisNext.com, and the book is available on Amazon. And if you're listening to this around Father's Day, we're going to be running a great promotion. It'll be like $2.99 or 99 cents, depending on if you're a Kindle Unlimited member or not.
Love it. All
Well,
right, I
maybe
have one
Colton,
more.
why don't we extend it for these, for this podcast, maybe?
Yeah,
Awesome.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I do have one more question. Just talk about writing down your goals, because so many people don't write their goals down, and you seem to think that's really powerful. Tell us why.
Yeah, totally. There is something, there's kind of two pieces to it. One, there's actually a like scientific element of physically writing things down. We've been communicating with the outside world and each other since the beginning of humanity in that way. Used to write on the walls as cave people. And so there's this natural mind body connection that happens when you tactically write things. And so it, ingests it into your mind, not only, just actually, and it's written down on a piece of paper, but you will consider your like setting a much more. So, when you're like thinking about, oh yeah, I created that goal and you wrote it down on a piece of paper, then you actually like connect with it much deeper, as well as then it's a constant reminder for you if you put it in your pocket or on the bathroom mirror or something like that, much more than just in a note on your phone or, a Google Doc. So there's that element. Also, it just forces you to also become much more clear and eloquent about what it is that you're looking to get, right? If you just have this like general concept of I want to make more money, right? Like if you're writing that down on a piece of paper, you're going to realize like that's pretty vapid. Like that's not going to really move the needle here. So, doing a process that helps you identify the specifics of, how you might be able to get there or what resources that you have is how we outline it and how we get people there to figuring out what's next for them. But yeah, the writing it down, just multiple facets of just making it so much more serious and important and actually consequential to you, and you'll stick to it much more effectively.
I love that. Well, thanks for stopping by, David and Colton. Have a great week, and everyone go grab the book, What the F is Next, available on Amazon. We'll see you next time. Thanks. And if you're looking to publish a book, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com, hit the author submission button, and we'll see if you're a candidate to work with us and make you a best-selling author. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.